Yeah, go live. It's fine.
We are
live. We're actually live, Gabe.
Woohoo! It's fine. People are used to the back of my head by now, right?
They're used to something, that's for sure. Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Gabe.
Hey.
We got Bob back.
We got Bob.
We do.
Here I am.
Let's do this.
What
time is it?
What time is it? We miss Andy Lund, Bob.
We do.
We really miss Andy Lund. But you know what? He's doing business.
I saw a great Facebook post featuring Andy and Masaki today with a 77 510.
Oh.
And they're talking about they're pretty sure it's the oldest Taylor in Japan, which was really exciting. And I meant to post a photo in the comments, and I don't know, I'm lazy, I haven't done it, but I have a 79 510 over here.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Is that your birth year?
That's my birth year guitar. I searched for that one for a long time. And I actually showed Bob a photo of it because I had just gotten it back the last time I saw Bob, which was at a PRT. But I had just gotten the guitar back from having a neck reset down at the factory.
Daria's here.
Daria's here.
Hey, Daria.
Yeah. Daria, she said, well, let's find all the Daria. Yo. Evan Smith says, hello, everyone. Yeah, we're still doing this. This is episode 98, Mike.
98 things.
We've done 98 things. You know, Bob was on the first episode. Yeah, the very first episode. And it was, we really didn't know what this thing was going to be. It was in the middle of a pandemic. We were trying to, you know, it was birthed out of the idea of doing some sort of roadshow-esque live thing. And we didn't have any technology. We didn't know what to do. We went live on Zoom. So I had a big giant Zoom logo over the top of it that you couldn't get rid of. Oh, man. There's so much that has happened in 98 things. Mike, we did 98 things.
We've done 97. Completed 97. We're in
our 98th
thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. We've completed 97 and are on our 98.
We're at 97.1 at this point. We're a radio station right now.
Like when a couple weeks ago when I had my birthday, I actually completed my 45th year and I started my 46th year.
Yes.
Yeah, we
turned 45 and you're not really.
Yeah. Daria loves your shirt, Gabe. Did you wear that for her?
Sure.
Okay. Good job. All right.
It was on top of the pile, but sure. It was on top of the laundry basket today.
Okay, enough of Gabe's fashion sense. We got Bob.
Bob's back. Oh man. I was doing some research and I think Bob was on episode 47 or 48, 49. Halfway point. So we're at 48 or we're at 98 right now. We should maybe have him back for the 100th somehow. We'll figure it out. Maybe. I don't know.
It seems to be a nice number.
I don't know. People like it. They keep coming back. This is exciting. We love everyone who comes and hangs out with us every week.
100th episode in our 50th year. That's something.
Yeah,
you get that division.
Math. Well, I should ask my daughters. They're smarter than me, so I'll ask them how to do that math. Anyway, welcome back, everybody. We're really excited to have Bob here. We're really excited to be back. Remember, we're only doing one or two of these episodes a month just because we're extremely busy over here. Remember, let's keep the feed clean. None of that funny business or Gabe will put you in timeout. Let's keep the nerd and guitar nerd. Okay, there's my disclaimer. We got no hate except for my mother, of course. My mom's like, you have to have a show. She actually sent me a text and it said, actually, we might as well read it. All right. Please do not cancel or there will be hate mail. All right,
I like
Mom.
that your mom trolls you. It's kind of great.
Wow, you've been around, but Bob's been around my mom. She should troll me. I'm worth trolling, 100%. All right, let's go into before we get into this discussion with Bob and into the Q&A, let's talk about album of the month. We're doing a new segment here. We're not going to do what are you listening to anymore. It's just going to be album of the month. Bob, what album have you been holding on to and listening to this month as your number one?
Well, this month is early, but I'll tell you, I've been listening
last month.
No, actually, this is perfect because for the last 2 weeks, I've been listening to Ryan Adams' version of 1989. He recorded that whole entire Taylor Swift album.
It's so good.
I dig it. I really dig it, and it's just going round and round on my stream when I drive.
It's a good album. I love that.
I just think it's cool that someone takes something like that and goes, I'm just going to record that whole album. Like, when does that happen? That was unique. So anyways, that's what I've been up to.
Gabe?
Well, this shirt is
no, not more Dave Matthews.
It's a live record from the Gundarita in Cleveland from 2000 where I saw them. And I love live music, and I'm a Dave Matthews fan. But I'm now switching into it's March, and it's the high holiday of my people, so I'm switching into all Irish music, and I'll just go full Irish all month. Glenn Hansard and the Frames, and I'll just go super Irish all month.
You can't.
By the way, this whole album thing, what are you listening to now? It's pretty high stress. It's a high stress. It's like as bad as being at a restaurant. And you're hoping that the waiter will go, oh, nice choice, sir. And it's like, I didn't get a nice choice.
I'll get made fun of no matter what.
Yeah,
it's kind of the rule.
Yeah,
you got a nice choice. That was a good one, Bob. Mm-hmm. Ryan Adams, 1989, Taylor Swift all the time. So I'm all about that. Mm-hmm. Gabe, on the other hand, it's fair. It's fair. He deserves to get made fun of just a little. Just
that's. If you
very good, sir. Very good choice.
Mike, what have you been listening to? What's your album of the month?
Speaking of being made fun of,
Rush.
I get made fun. Yeah, well, yeah. Hey, I actually have a tie. They're both Canadian. They're both couldn't be more dissimilar. So I have
Sum 41 and Rush.
Rush, Farewell to Kings.
Oh,
and
followed up by Gino Vanelli, Brother to Brother.
How about that?
Seriously, I mean this album is great. If everybody knows Gino Vanelli from like the 2 hits he had, but this album is filled with like fusion jazz stuff that's outrageous and super well produced. So cool. Gino Vanelli, Brother to Brother, great album.
What about you, Jay? What's your record of the month?
Yeah,
your album of the month, rather. Because
are you having the chicken nuggets with apple juice, or what are you having?
Good, I am. I'm having the chicken nuggets with apple juice. From the Gallery of Sleep, a band called Night Verses. They're an instrumental metal band. Yep, no singer.
They're an instrumental band.
They are. They're so fantastic, incredibly talented. Absolute rippers at all 3 musicians. It's a 3-piece. There's a guitarist. Sometimes he plays an 8-string guitar. Most of the time he plays a 6-string guitar. But it's wild. The drummer is just phenomenal. And his name's Eric, but he spells it with an A. So I kind of like that. Night Verses.
Eric with an A. Jay with an A.
Eric with an A. There we go. All right, Bob. What have you been up to lately, Bob? Co-founder. You got to say that. Bob, you notice his title up there on his little thing is Bob. So Bob, your title is Bob. What have you been up to lately?
Well, probably since last time I've been on this show, the Circa 74 amp has been my jam with a small team. Tyler Roberts, Terry Myers, and David Judd. And that amp is out, and people are using it as just a small box PA that works great. I mean, you could sing to 200 people with that thing, and it sounds good, really sounds good, and it's beautiful. So now we're getting the production up, and now I'm starting to walk around the Powers Electric stuff because that guitar is hard to make. We say, well, it hurts. We just don't mind that it hurts. We take that from Lawrence of Arabia. But like the knobs we make on it and the cam tail, now it's time to come up with processes that speed that kind of stuff up. And that's sort of my thing. I can look at stuff and think of ways to make it, suggest it to people. We try out little experiments to kind of get these things up to speed, so that, you know, all of the metrics can be met. So you can make some money when you're done making the thing, and so that price doesn't have to go out the roof. And yeah, and business is interesting this time because it's sort of a post-COVID, long COVID for business, the guitar industry. And so we have challenges that we've faced with getting everything sold and production right, and just all the sort of leftover stuff. And I kind of like these times because we get more creative. I've always enjoyed that. You know, when stuff, and we talked about it even during COVID. I remember talking with you, Jay, you know, when it's really, 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 really hard, and that was a different kind of hard. I'm like, I kind of dig this because we make things up. And so now it's a different kind of hard. I would say that out of 5 years, in fact, Kurt said this once, he goes, you know, if I think about Taylor, every 5 years, you have a really killer year, you have a kind of a hard year, and you have about 3 years of it's normal. And, you know, you just come in and things work. And so that whole up and down keeps it pretty nice. And then I'm trying to stay healthy, you know, walk more, eat right, take care of some of my, you know, buy some new body parts, you know, get a new cornea, you know, and that kind of stuff. Go down to AutoZone and buy some body parts and put them on, and unbolt some old ones and that kind of stuff. But I you know, I'm still walking erect and doing good. Yeah.
That's right. You got a whole new eye almost.
Almost. I got to get another one here pretty soon too. Like, you look pretty good with that eye, Jay. Kind of blurry with that one. So anyway,
we should have Bob. We should have Bob on more often because then we look kind of okay.
Well, you guys are all soft focus, which makes you look cute.
We almost look young. Bob, it's been interesting talking to people. You mentioned Circa 74, and it's been really interesting talking to people about the amp kind of in forums, and obviously, you know, I'm really active in that stuff, and it's been really fun talking to people about it and seeing people get excited about it. And I love that it's been kind of your pet project. You were talking a little while ago. We were talking before the live feed really started about an Irish guitar builder that we'd both met about 2 years apart, who lives like way out on a peninsula and just built guitars out of his house. He's passed away now, named Chris Larkin. And but you were talking about how you like to build things with people, and the idea of like just building by yourself wouldn't be as fun for you. And Circa, for you, like, you know, there was this little group of people who worked on it, which I think is super interesting, that here you are at this point in your career and you're still really involved in these processes. And I think that's super interesting for people.
Yeah. You know, that amp came around really because I was walking through like literally a enormous warehouse of pieces of 4x4 mahogany that are this long, you know, that we can't make, you know, that we can't make a part out of so easily. And what am I going to make out of this? Okay, I can make some cutting boards. Oh, we make different parts for inside of guitars, arm rest, crescent moons. We glue this stuff up and heel blocks and all this. But I can't handle throwing this stuff away. Well, I wish I could make a box. Hey, maybe I could put a speaker in the box. Maybe I could, you know. And a lot of times people think that products come around because I see a hole in the market and I'm really going to, you know, take care of this. But in reality, I just got inspired looking at this and thinking, you know, I know how to design a piece of furniture. And the reason I can design furniture is because we had a guy working here for a long, long time named Richard Berry. He was the director of our second shift. He started it. He retired from here a few years ago. And Richard was maybe the best woodworker I knew out there. I had hired him to build a home theater. I'm talking 30 some years ago. And then I hired him. If there are any people who've been around Taylor for a long time, there was a time our NAMM show booth had these beautiful cases, almost like library cases, and our guitars were in it, and the place looked almost like a museum. And Richard made all of those. And then one day I said, would you like to come to work for us? And he did. And he was a great furniture maker. And I was making furniture, but kind of making furniture like a guitar maker makes it, like flat, square, all kinds of little detail in it. And so then I thought, I need to make furniture like furniture is made. And Richard would stand behind me. I love to give credit where credit's due. He'd stand behind me while I would draw stuff. And he goes, make that 5/8 of an inch. You need to put a little vitamins in that detail. Get a little bit bigger. 2 1/4 inches on this rail. Then go to 1 1/4 inch. Okay. And then 5/8 of an inch. Pull that thing out. And I would just watch this stuff. And then I'd make an island or a desk or a something. And it'd be like, wow, this is beautiful stuff. And I learned some stuff from him. So here we have the square box. And we designed it with these cool corners on it that you see. So now you have the square box. It actually has some architecture to it, is what I call the stand, all of that. Well, when you think about an acoustic guitar amp, to me, it doesn't really have a great reason to exist unless you can sing through it. You know, now I think you're talking about a piece of gear that works really well, and that tone is easy to find. Lots and lots of features isn't what I want. It's just, you know, nice tone control, a quality reverb. Yeah, you want to put an iPhone Bluetooth so that you can play it between sets. But all these cats that go out and play at a wine bar, at a restaurant, take something that looks good, pick it up, set it down. My brother-in-law's that guy. He's a year older than me, and he's been playing forever. And so during COVID, when everybody was working outside, we brought our first advanced prototype, and he set it down in this outdoor venue outside of a restaurant. There were tents set up, and it was big. It covered a lot of area. And he plugged his guitar in. He's a good singer. He's a good player. And he played and sang to those people. And the 4 of us on our team, we looked at each other and go, whoa, I think we got something here. This is legit. This is a legit little guitar and vocal PA. And as we designed it, I'm going on a little bit long about this, but I'm taking advantage.
Do it.
As we designed it, there were a bunch of people that came in from the side that wanted to look at oscilloscope readings and specs and clarity and no distortion, this, that, and the other thing. And we didn't say phooey to that, but we listened to a lot of stuff and we said, yeah, it specs out great, but we don't like the way it sounds. And so we just started using our ears. And I'm kind of proud of that, even though that might not be the thing that you should be proud of. You know, we worked on the amplifier itself, the speaker, the cabinet, so that when you played it, it sounded good. And I can liken it to maybe an electric guitar. You know, it turns out that when you're trying to make a PA system, you sort of want it to be stereo quality clean. You want flat response, clean. But an acoustic guitar doesn't really sound that way it doesn't sound good unless it's warm. And maybe another way to say warm is the right kind of distortion. Plug your ears. I just said that word, but it's got to have a little bit of breakup in it to sound
a little
warm,
bit, yeah,
nice.
Saturation, yeah.
I don't know how you describe it, but when we found the speaker we liked and we found the amp and we modified the design, we have Tyler worked a lot on that. He really knows his stuff on that. And Terry is an amplifier nut. I mean, Terry, you guys know Terry. He's a player. He can play, and he likes amps, and he can sound good on anything. He's got great bone tone, and he named it.
Did he really?
Yeah, that was Terry's name. You know, he's just so into it. He was thinking all the time. So when you think of something like this, you got to name it, you got to promote it, you got to box it, you got to make it look right. Dave Judd made all the prototypes. I could say, make it. I almost did to him what Richard Berry did to me. Pull this out. make this fuller, move it like this. No, that's too skinny. No, that's too fat. No, this is, angle it like this. And we together we got there. And it was just sort of a team of, ruffians that made this thing that's beautiful when it's done, beautiful to look at, and it sounds great, so we love it. It was a nice little accomplishment, a labor of love, and we're using wood. We have mahogany.
Lots of mahogany to use.
It's a great way to use it. And it turns out that mahogany sounds good. Duh.
It sounds so good. I was reminding, Bob and I were chatting about it in the parking lot the other day. And I was, tasked to go film some content with this amp and we were going to do it in Nashville. And that's Gabe, it's the Toll and Shaw thing that you mixed. And all I did was put a couple of room mics up, right, far from the amp, and kind of just let it go and just play it. Now, the best part, Bob, is that we started getting yelled at a lot when we launched it because he plays a looper, and part of his pedal board has a tube screamer on it. And the reason he uses a tube screamer is because he's looping layers of guitar, so he needs one to overdrive just a little bit. And we got yelled at a little bit. We know that we got yelled at anyway. But as we were filming this thing, I remember sending you a text and I said, Bob, this thing is amazing. It really is. It's incredible. Mike, have you had some positive feedback from dealers on the Circa 74?
So I'll say this from a salesman point of view. I sold these to, I probably have about half of my dealers have probably picked up the amp, placed an order for the amp at this point. And those that got them first, we'll take one. Now they wish they took 4. Because the amount of questions they're getting for them are unreal. I had one store that bought 3, sold all 3 in the first 2 days that they were allowed to sell them.
Yeah.
And then had orders for 7 more behind it. So
that's good.
Yeah, it's going over really well. And when the thing that really impressed me about the amp was, it looks fantastic. But Bob, to your point about it, really bringing out vocals, you have vocal and guitar coming out of the same amp, but you hear the separation.
Yes, absolutely.
One is not blurring into the other. And that to me is a miraculous point because, whether it be, I'm not going to name other brands, but there are times that you hear other brands when
Nike.
People are doing these. Yeah, Avia and Puma, those amps are terrible. But you'll be at an open mic or you'll be at a coffee house and somebody's playing and they sound fine, but that the equipment is blurring their sound together and making it sound like a mid-range mess. The Circa 74 does not do that, and that I found to be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That 150 watts that it packs helps that a lot too.
Lots of headroom.
It's just to have headroom, and it covers a lot of space. So if you're going to do an outdoor wedding and there's 200 people, they're going to hear you just fine. It's going to be just fine, and you look good too. And a lot of these wine bars and bars are getting nicer and more beautiful. And I've always thought, here's some designer designed this wonderful place, and then some guy rolls in with his hand truck and his spaghetti of chords and all of his effects and his beat up amp. And it's just like, you're trashing up my place. You know what I mean? So how about a nice clean amp that looks beautiful?
Yeah.
And 2 chords, a microphone and a guitar, and put on some reverb and play and sing for people. I kind of like that idea. I'm not saying that this amp other people make amps, they do a good job. This is our version of what we really wanted to bring to the market. And we wanted to bring something beautiful because acoustic guitar players appreciate beautiful. A little side benefit that we never intended, because Terry Myers, who I have been mentioning, has 2 different Rolling Stone tribute bands. One of them's a big band and one of them's just a, guitar and bass drums band. And they play medium-sized crowds and huge crowds. And he's like, the great thing about this amp is because it is flat response and it is warm, but it doesn't have a Fender tone, doesn't have a Marshall tone, doesn't have a Vox tone. It's not bringing, that kind of a tone. I can play my modeler. I play my electric guitar through it. I'm going, you're doing Stones gigs with it? And he goes, yeah, it works great. I just have my modeler and this thing's flat response, and I just put a mic in front of it, and it's just working wonderful. So I can sound like all these things. And that whole idea is becoming popular because a month ago, Fender released their flat response amp along with their new modeler, so this is something that's great for people with T5s. Anyways, we love it. It was a nice project, and now we're trying to work on it. We don't want to use this whole episode to talk about that, but that is what I was up to.
But we could.
Cool.
At least we've been talking about something that has to do with guitars, Bob, because usually we get yelled at and people will be like, it's 25 minutes and 50 seconds and you haven't spoken about guitars yet. So amps are close to guitars. So I'm excited about that. We have a bunch of questions for you. This is a rapid fire Ask Bob episode. Rapid fire is fun to say. They don't always go rapidly, but it's a fire.
I'm gonna see what I can do about that.
We'll see what we can do about that. One more thing before we start answering questions, asking Bob questions and hearing the answers is next week we are finally releasing American Dreamers, 50 years of Taylor guitars, and we are so excited about it. You guys, we showed you a clip of the podcast that we have been filming and recording with Bob and Kurt over the last 2 years. Excuse me. And we are so excited. We have a couple of episodes still to capture, but we have a lot of them in the bag, and Gabe has done
hard at work on them.
Phenomenal job editing them and mixing them, and Dave Pelletier and the whole team put it together, and it is we cannot wait for you guys to see it or listen to it. It's going to be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, all of it. It's going to be everywhere. And we're partnering for at least the first episode with Fretboard Journal. So we're really excited about working with Jason and getting this thing out to everybody. You got to hear it. Some of the stories are just mint, and it's been a really fun time. So,
well, let me just say that that's one of the great pleasures of my life is you guys will think of something to do and start doing it. And the next thing you know, we have something good, like almost 100 episodes of this show.
Yeah.
And no one told you to do that or to make this American Dreamers podcast. And me and Kurt, we show up and Dave's all prepared to be an interviewer, and we just talk and we reminisce, and then it all gets put together. And that's why I don't want to make guitars all by myself in a little shop, because there's just way too much fun having other people who are dedicated. I mean, I feel so blessed that there's other people that love this company like I love it. And I just feel blessed about that. So I'll just say thank you to all you knuckleheads.
All of us knuckleheads. You know what? It's been so much fun capturing that, just sitting in the room, in the control room, and just listening to you guys reminisce.
The
and
stories
learning.
But there's so much to learn, and the stories are outstanding. People are gonna love it.
You guys will just now really understand. Bob and Kurt have been saying it for a long time. Bob always is asked, what is the special sauce with Taylor guitars? And he will always say mine and Kurt's partnership. And now when we're what, 8 episodes in, I think we have 2 more to film, but there's about 10 or 11. And it's been a delight. It's so much fun listening to stories over before 50 years, really. I mean, we led up, the first episode is leading up to the American Dream. So I'll leave it at that. You guys have seen a little bit of a teaser, but we're really excited for that. Another little bit of housekeeping. We are relaunching the From the Factory podcast. In fact, we have 2 episodes in the bag, which are really exciting. And today we filmed with two gentlemen who have been on the show. 2 of our vice presidents, VP of Manufacturing, Chris Wellens, and Ed Granero, who is VP of Product Development. And man, oh man, Ed's been here for 28 years, and Chris has been here for 32. So you can imagine those stories are pretty lit. They are just funny and exciting, and it was just so special. So we're trying to bring you as much content as possible in the 50th year of Taylor Guitars. That being said, it's time to ask some questions, answer some questions. Bob, I got one right here for you. Question. All right. I realize that it's player preference, but how do you see the Grand Pacific body style in the 300 series and up competing with spruce rosewood market, a differentiator from other brands? Oh, that's a good question. So non-cutaway, round shoulder dreadnought shape. How do you see it competing with other brands?
Well, the simplest answer to me is it brings the Taylor family of tone to the table and our necks and playability. But, I saw there's this guy who's got a YouTube channel, young man. He plays amazing guitar, and he happens to play a Taylor. And one of his latest streams that came by, it's like he plays Just the Two of Us, really cool rendition on his Taylor. And then his friend, his buddy, plays the same rendition, who's a good player, on a Martin. And the thing is like, Taylor or Martin, which one do you like? And I remember writing Andy, and they're both guitars, right? And they didn't come to a conclusion. They're just putting it out there. And I wrote Andy and I said, I'm so glad that we make a guitar that offers a different tone. And no matter what guitar we make, even if it's Taylor that you can play bluegrass on, it's going to sound like Taylor, and I don't think that it's going to slay other people and their rosewood and spruce, but it is a big, bold guitar, and it does hold up really well to flat picking and a heavy pick. And, for people that want to play that kind of music, it's a pretty legit guitar.
It's true. I love that shape. I got one. Here's a good one. Ooh. What happens when koa ages? And is the process similar to other species?
Well, definitely, yes. It's the same. What happens when any wood ages is, to keep it really simple and not get all scientific, because I'll get into the weeds of things that someone want to challenge me on. But I'm going to just say as the wood dries and seasons, let me give you an example. With brand new spruce or mahogany, when we put on binding, we put it on by stretching masking tape over it. We tape the binding on while the glue dries. And when you take that tape off, you have to figure out the nap of the wood. I'm trying to get on my microphone. So imagine the fibers could be coming up at an angle. And if you pull the wrong way, it's like pulling a hangnail. And you could pull like a hole through the guitar if you're not careful. You could pull up a big long piece of spruce like celery if you're not careful. You have to pull it the right direction. That's what spruce is like, and other woods are like, even mahogany, on the day that you're making a guitar, when it's fresh wood. If you see that guitar 25 years later, and maybe you have to do a repair to it and you sand the finish off, there's none of that celery type fiber left in it. You can pull the tape off any direction, and it's not going to snag a hangnail with a little thing and turn it into a wound. So imagine what happened to that wood. Just try and give yourself a mental picture, right? I'm not trying to be super scientific. I'm just telling you something that's super physically true, that wood changes. And so what happens is the wood becomes a little bit more free to vibrate. It still has strength, and it gets harder. And this is the problem with over torifying wood, is because you can give it some of that drying that happens naturally, but it becomes brittle and you can break it. And so when people are into torrefaction, but if you go too far, oh man, you can snap a piece of wood in half, right? And so that wood settles in, and it slowly just starts, the aging process happens and the breaking down of vibration happens. and the guitar just begins to sound better. The rosewood does, the spruce does, the mahogany does, the koa does. It all happens. It happens to all pieces of wood.
Gabe's 79 sounds pretty good, huh?
It's great. It's a great. It's a great guitar. I think, people mythologize vintage guitars a lot. In general, like in the used guitar market, you see people mythologize like vintage things a lot. I kind of attribute it to the wood, just aging. The wood is, cured a long time. It's aged a long time. And so you're getting a much older, and you're seeing those pre-war guitars and stuff. Those, you're playing pieces of wood that are almost 100 years old. They've been a guitar for almost 100 years at that point. So like, yeah, they sound pretty good. If they're still together, they sound pretty good. This is a pretty special guitar. It's great. I need to kind of record some stuff with that, and then my like 517 side by side, and like maybe my 514. It's really interesting how there's a through line in the DNA. You'll be shocked in some ways.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Gabe, I remember writing a Bob Speak column at Wood and Steel once, and this was maybe 10 or 12 or 15 years ago, where I said, please keep to all you guitar horse traders, please keep one of your guitars.
Right.
Just pick one, or you'll never be able to experience what it sounds like when it's 15 years old.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And and a lot of people are like trading a new one. It's like, okay, trade all you want, but pick one and keep it, because something special happens. A guitar, there's a tonal change in the first hour. And then there's a tonal change after 1 to 3 years. And then there's another one that happens 12 to 15 years. I don't know when the next one might happen. It might be super gradual. But I've noticed that if you go on the forums and people go, when was the best year of the Taylors? And people start answering. It's all 15 years ago.
The golden age.
It's all 15 years ago from the day you're reading it. I have, and you're like, yeah, there's kind of a reason for that, because guitars sound better when they're 15 years old.
Yeah, my first Taylor is an 05 514 CE, which it'll always be one of my favorite guitars ever, because it's opened up beautifully. It's really fun to play.
Heater top.
Yeah, and it's a Canon. People talk about GAs not being as loud, and I'm like, just wait a second. It's like, just wait a second. Right. Let it open up. Like the same thing is true. Like my 517, a year into having it turned into it's so loud. It's so loud. It's great.
All right.
Yeah.
Back to this rapid fire.
Let's go.
Here we go. This question is so good. I have to put it up. Okay. If the best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup, isn't the best part of Tuesday night when Primetime is on?
I love this.
Bob?
Well, my Tuesday nights, it's definitely true.
Okay.
It's what I live for.
Okay.
Monday seems to last forever. And then Tuesday comes and I start wagging my tail.
Oh, Deborah has a question. All right, here's a good one. My dream guitar is dark wood, and it's small and light, like the Academy series. So a Academy 22E, great guitar, with built-in tuner. Any suggestions? Oh, guitar suggestions by Bob. I love it.
Gosh. I'm too old to remember all the models we make. No, really. We make so many. I know that we have built-in tuners on some babies, big babies,
GS Minis.
But I think by the time we get to the Academy,
we have it. Yep.
We have it. There you go.
Yeah.
If you buy the E version, it's got a built-in tuner. Now, I'm going to tell you my opinion about built-in tuners.
That's what we wanted to hear.
That's consumer electronics. Put your tuner outside. So we make this guitar. So here's my life. I start making a guitar. They last forever. I tell someone they're buying an heirloom product. The day comes when you start putting pickups in, and the less expensive a guitar costs, the less money you have to buy that little preamp that goes into the side of the guitar. This is why our little 3 knobs on the side and our battery sort of housing down where the strap pin is. That's the format we're keeping to, so it can always be upgraded, because the last thing that I really want to promote all the way across, especially when you start spending more money on the guitar, is something that becomes obsolete and isn't future proof. We do find that people that buy those less expensive guitars love that built-in tuner, and we do it. And hopefully we can always buy that same product long in the future, because electronics tend to disintegrate. We all know that. I mean, they just do. And so that guitar's got that tuner in it. It's really, really great. But I suggest anybody who owns a guitar, as you start going up to more expensive guitars where we're building for tone and building for, all the other nuances that a guitar can have, leave that behind in your journey and put your tuner outside. Clip it on the peg head, And one day when that tuner isn't the best tuner that you can find anymore, throw it away and buy the newest best tuner and clip it onto your peg head. Do you guys sort of agree, or?
I totally agree.
I do. Get a good pedal tuner, get a good rack mount tuner. I've had a Korg rack mount tuner for like 20 years. It's great.
Yeah.
Yep. We make a tuner. We make a beacon tuner. That's great.
Still don't have one. I don't know why.
I'm a strobe tuner guy, so there's clip-on strobe tuners. I got pedal strobe tuners, but yeah. This is a great question. Soul Sync. I also like your name. Why isn't maple used more as body and sides, back and sides wood?
There's a one-word answer: sales.
All right, next question.
Okay. Oh, I'm going to give a little bit more, because people tend to gravitate away from that. A lot of people feel like what do they think it's too mid-rangey? They think it's not mid-rangey enough. I don't know. I get confused because I've heard so many different stories about that. One reason why, when we redesigned the 600 series, when was that? 10 years ago?
14
years ago. We made that guitar brown. We stained the maple brown so that it's not instantly a blonde guitar that people go, oh, gee, I don't know if I like a blonde guitar, and we sold a lot more of those. I'd say we make maybe more maple guitars than almost anybody, except for Gibson's J200 is a maple guitar, and they've been making that for a long, long time. When it comes to steel string acoustics, I would say that if you took 100 people and put a mahogany guitar and a maple guitar and a rosewood guitar in the rack and said, pick the one that you want, it's going to be 15% of the people like the maple. So you can use it as much as you want, but if it doesn't find the right buyer, then there's a limit.
Yeah. Maple. I love maple. Maple is very transparent. Maple is it's player reflective, we say. So I'll put it in simple terms. I'm a writer, so I don't play other people's music. So if I were to play other people's music, like if I were to play a cover on a maple guitar, it would sound probably not that great. But if I'm to write my own music on a maple guitar, I know exactly what I'm playing. So I use maple guitars as a recording weapon. I give them to work with a lot of producers that will use them in recording because they are so reflective. It's really, really.
They're also great for the stage.
They are unreal for the stage because maple cuts through the mix like no tomorrow. So it's.
I always describe them, and Mike is one of the best people I know at talking about guitar tone, which is a really hard thing to do, but Mike is one of my favorite people to hear talk about guitars. I always say they're fundamental strong. They have a lot of fundamental, like the notes are kind of, they're there. There's not a bunch of overtones that hang out for 3 hours afterward. The fundamentals are there. Maple can have lots of low end and plenty of high end and everything else. It's not the big syrupy mix of overtones necessarily. I agree that it's super player reflective, like the way you attack a guitar. And I think a lot of players maybe just don't think about that as much. Like the way you hold a pick. I hold a pick in my knuckle like a mandolin player and play with this edge. I don't hold it like this and play with this edge. And so my attack on a guitar is totally different from somebody else holding this pick. And that will change the tone of a guitar, sometimes more than the wood.
The pick changes the tone so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you do with it? What do you think?
Well, 618.
Yeah,
618, Mike.
Is like one of my favorite guitars that we make, Bob. I love that guitar. It gives you everything that you could possibly ever want. I've told this other story many times where when I first, when I moved back to New York back in 2001, I got a job in a guitar store, and I walked into that guitar store on day one and they had this Taylor brand. I'm like, all right, well, let's see. I got to learn about this stuff, right? So I go over and I pick the first one that caught my eye, and it was this amber tinted 614 CE. I'm like, I don't know, let me give it a strum. And I gave it one strum, and I was done.
It knocked you in the chest.
This is astounding. And I wound up selling a ton of 614 CEs at the store. Because I fell in love with maple. Now, that wasn't my first experience with maple. My first experience with maple was back in the 70s with Guild. And Guild made those big, unwieldy maple guitars that were just gigantic, but had a huge sound nonetheless. They sounded good. They were really hard to play, but they sounded great. So the sound of maple is stuck with me throughout the years, you know, and up and through and including the 618E today, which I think is one of the most underrated guitars that we make. That guitar is great in the studio. It's great live. It's great if you're a solo artist. It's great if you're in a band situation. It does everything that you could possibly ever ask it to do. And that is why I really love maple, because there are certain things that other woods can't reproduce.
Yeah.
You can't remove overtones out of a guitar.
No.
You know, you can add some, but you can't remove them. They're there, you know? It's just sort of like if you record with reverb, you can never remove the reverb. So you don't record with reverb. You add that later. You know, those are things that you can do with a 600 series guitar, with a maple guitar, that you can't do with other guitars because they're already there. You can't take them out. It's a blank canvas that is very player reflective. I'm on my best game when I play a maple guitar. Because I have to be, because it does show your flaws, you know, but it at the same time, though, it rewards the player that nails it, you know,
I love it
big time. So that is my thought on maple.
Yeah, I would say, okay, first of all, here's an iPhone picture of maybe my favorite guitar we ever made. I'm going to hold it up here. Look at that maple guitar.
Oh yeah, it's pretty.
That's gorgeous.
Wow. I just love that guitar. I keep it on my phone. It's like a grandchild to me. I love hearing what you guys all have to say about it. The real answer to the question is a lot of people don't give maple a chance.
Yeah.
And they're not ready to learn about the advantages of that. So we extol its virtues all the time. And I'll say that in the early days, the American Dream days and the early Taylor days, I made maple guitars. I mean, every third guitar was a maple guitar. I've been making maple guitars for a really long time.
Yeah, I love them. All right, we got a couple more questions. Hold on.
I found a good one.
Hold on, I got two good ones and then we'll get to that. Unless I'm stealing one of yours.
Probably, you probably are.
Here's this good one. Ken says, Bob, your accomplishments with Taylor guitars are, well, legendary. With all of that great stuff, any regrets?
No regrets, none. No, this was the joy of my life. I don't have any regrets. None.
See, that's rapid fire.
Rapid fire right there.
All right, Bob, I got another one. Hey,
I'd
Bob.
have to make one up, you know, so that I'd go, oh. Very good.
I regret coming on Primetime.
Letting Jay make things.
This is the best thing ever happened to me. Is Taylor guitars. I love it. Every bit of it.
You know, it's really interesting when we were recording that podcast with Ed and Chris earlier today. That is the feeling we all have here. The challenge is we work for Taylor guitars. because what's challenging is like you come to work and every job has something you don't like to do. Okay, we know that's life, right?
I work for myself and I have that.
Yeah, but when you walk in the doors and you smell guitars and you hear the factory, right? And you hear the high-pitched frequencies of the dust collectors, and you feel the vibration. Mike and I are on the second floor of a factory, right? So like it makes everything just normal. It's like you don't need to put a seatbelt on. You're at a factory. We manufacture guitars, and it's guitars and music, and it's awesome, and we love it. All right, let's ask this question real quick. Hey, Bob, do you have any plans to use Ovangkol? I bought an AD-17 a few years ago. It looks great. It looks as great as it sounds.
Okay, no new plans to use Ovangkol. Little tidbit, we're the ones who introduced Ovangkol to the market in our 25th year. Sapele, the same thing. People weren't making acoustic guitars out of Ovangkol or Sapele. So those were the two new, people are always like, hey, what's the new next wood, Bob? And I'm like, I don't know. We're making guitars out of the new next wood. But Ovangkol became a wood that, another word for Ovangkol for any woodworkers out there is sedua. We call it that in the US. And there is just a whole lot of new international laws about that particular wood. It mostly comes from the country of Ghana in Africa. And the export of it has become really quite difficult. It's hard to get. And in order to make a good guitar from Ovangkol, you have to have a lot of Ovangkol logs to choose the good log, right? And that's the way it is with guitar wood. I say, not every mahogany tree is a guitar tree. And when it comes to trees, there's the pallet tree in any species. There's the furniture tree. There's the musical instrument tree, right? And you harvest trees, you cut down trees, and just because it's mahogany doesn't mean it's a great one. Just because it's a walnut doesn't mean it's a great one. So Ovangkol has just, in order to keep it thriving in the forest and keep the economy proper in Ghana for those people who use it, it's not really commercially viable right now.
Oh, interesting. Gabe, it's your turn.
He says there's the guitar tree and there's the pallet tree, but then proceeds to make guitars out of pallets. And
yeah, the hardest guitar I ever made.
I know, but
and a great guitar though, like
one
an
of the
objectively great guitar. I've played that guitar and it's awesome. Like objectively, really good sounding guitar. I actually found two that are really good that are close together here. This one is kind of full nerd because I've been working on the podcast. I've always been curious as to why the Taylor Headstock logo has a small gap in the A.
Well, because okay. First of all,
I love that this is so like OG Taylor, like early days Taylor.
Yeah. So first of all, I needed a logo for Taylor, and let's just say I was at the American Dream and I was taking a pee, and I turned my head sideways for a second, and I noticed the Taylor thermometer, the Taylor brand thermometer, and it had those letters. And so I photocopied them and I cut them apart and broke them into an arc. And then I started stylizing it. So that's where the Taylor logo came from the company called Taylor. It makes thermometers. And
so good.
Yeah.
The best logos were borrowed.
And that one's broken. And also all the first jillions of Taylor logos, I hand sawed with a jeweler's saw out of pearl. And I had to drill a hole in the O and then take my jeweler's saw blade out, which was like a coping saw, thread it up through it, tighten it, respring it, and then cut that O. I definitely didn't want to do that on the A2. So I just came around, and I'll tell you what, I can, in my mind, from cutting those inlays, I can close my eyes and I can take a felt pen and I can take this track, T, here's the T, here's the A, here's the N. Oh, let me get where you can see it. Come up the T, come around, scoop, come across it, come down, come up to the A, go inside, cut this, come all the way down, come up to the Y, L, little tag on it, come over to the O, the R that come down, comes all the way up the bottom of the O, the Y, then the A, and boom, home run. And then I have to drill a hole in the O, right? And it was just a lot easier to have one continual saw line from the bottom corner of the T all the way back around to there, and only have to drill one hole in it. So that's the story of the space.
I love it so much. You guys check out the podcast, because it's things like this that you're just like, wow, who would have thought that? Like, I love it. I also really liked this one. I bought a builder's edition with Urban Ash, and it sounds glorious. Can you talk about the idea of repurposing trees from cities like Los Angeles, where I live on the outskirts of?
Well, when we talked earlier about you and I both visited Chris Larkin, that happened for me on a tour that I did around the whole entire world in 28 days with a team of colleagues that we went to see forests. We called it the World Forestry Tour. And all of our interest in regenerating forests or growing wood purposefully in a forest or even a plantation, we went around the world. We ended up in Ireland to look at the spruce that they're growing in Ireland that all came from seed stock from Washington State, Sitka spruce. And we visited Chris Larkin while we were there. We'd heard of him. We all went out there and did that. And then we started, we came up with this motto along the way, a little saying, there will never be sustainability unless there's replanting, right? And we continued around the world, and we would talk on the airplane about that kind of stuff, talk over dinner. Without replanting, we won't have sustainability. Then, by the time we got all the way back, we said, we're changing that. There will never be sustainability without good governance. That became our new motto. Good governance in countries is the only way to get to sustainability. Good governance encompasses everything. But on the way home, myself, I started thinking, there's trees all over the place. I have this dream that one day you would be able to go into your local nursery or the nursery part of Home Depot. And right now you can find ornamental trees and you can find fruit trees. Well, I think it would be great to go in and find those. And then how about high value timber trees that you could plant one? How about musical quality high value timber trees, you know? And then you could get people around. What if our whole culture around the world, someone plants a tree in their backyard and they're like, well, what grows in this area? How about if I plant a Bastogne walnut, and one day, 60 years from now, when that thing has to come out and I have to pay an arborist $10,000 to take it out, maybe I would pay him less money and that thing could go to a sawmill and it could get repurposed. So we started thinking about that. Meanwhile, Andy was having the same thoughts, and one thing led to another. I read an article about a local urban wood place was making furniture, put Scott Paul on, who you've had on the show many times, our director of natural wood source sustainability. And he met West Coast arborist, and bada bing, in our own backyard, here's an arborist that takes care of 300 municipalities in the United States and Arizona, and all of the municipal trees. They have to cut down the ones that are ready to fall. They have to replant everything. They have to trim, take care of the health of 3 million trees, or some ridiculous number like that, might be more. Every one of those trees is on an iPhone app. You can sit at a restaurant. They go, see that tree out there? Here it is. Here's the last time we did this, this, and this to it. And they had formed a sawmill. They started a little side business called Street Tree Revival, selling wood and selling furniture that they're making out of it. And we hook up together, and we were like, their company and our company were like brothers from another mother. And we came together, and it was an idea and an absolute perfect situation where, you know, sometimes it's just better to be lucky than smart. You know, you have the idea, and there they are. There they are. Without them, we couldn't do it. And we're in California, so that makes it easy too, because everything was planted in California. You know, you could be in another state where you have two species to pick from. So anyways, that's the story of that. And the idea, like many things, like talking about the amplifier, it didn't start with, I want to make an amplifier. How am I going to do that? No, it's like, I want to use this wood. What am I going to turn it into? And then one idea begets another idea, then it begets another idea, and then it actually grows into something. And that's how urban wood turned out.
I've talked many times on this show about running into you at a NAMM show, and it's the last day. Everybody's leaving. Everybody's stopping at my booth to say goodbye, and I was stopping to say goodbye to some friends at Taylor. And I was actually supposed to be on my way to an on the way out of the show meeting with somebody else, and you happened to walk in the booth and just said hi to me and started chatting with me, and it turned into an hour and a half talk. And I completely blew off the other meeting. I went later. I felt bad, but that trip around the world is what you were talking about at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you folks want to check that out, there are some vlogs on the Taylor YouTube channel about that are pretty cool. The Chris Larkin connection kind of comes up again because he was part of a thing called the Leonardo Project, which was about using local Tonewoods, which is neat. And there's the other thing that popped in my head, which is that there's a really cool Amish owned local, I would call it a hardware store, but it's like hardware and lumber, and it's absolutely massive. They have a clock tower inside. It's so big. That's all handcrafted, and they have a lutherie section because a lot of those folks
really, that's cool,
build their own instruments, and they have
I'd go there on vacation.
It's come to Amish country. We will take you everywhere. It's pretty cool. It's a nice area. We're in the largest Amish population in the world here. So
he's selling it hard, isn't he?
I am. Bob Taylor comes to Amish country.
I would love that. That'd be great. We should film that. Okay.
If only there was someone here to do it.
Couple more questions here. Bob, what is your favorite Tonewood combination on a guitar?
I refuse to answer.
I knew that was what was going to happen.
I refuse to answer. I'm not answering that. That's
right, because they're all good. Okay. What's one variety?
What's your favorite food? You know what I mean?
Pizza tonight.
It's a legit question. People answer it all the time. I don't want anybody who asks that question to feel bad, but I don't have a favorite. Depends on the mood I'm in. Everything.
Yeah, that's the best part about guitars is there's a whole bunch and you should play them all. 100%. All right, we got one here. What is one variety of wood that is difficult to source that you wish was readily available?
I like this.
Engelmann spruce, very hard to source. Right now, cedar is very hard to source. Ebony, we source it, but it's hard. And we own our own company to do it, and it's hard. There is no wood that we use that's easy to source. And if we have an incredible supplier, that makes it easy for us because we just order, and we have suppliers we've worked with for 45 years, and never changed. They make it easy, but that doesn't mean it's easy. To us, it's easy because they handle it, right? But I always say the easiest day to buy wood is today. Tomorrow is going to be harder.
Yeah.
It won't be easier. Now, I will say with koa, there's going to come a day when it's easier for koa because we're planting a lot of it.
Yeah, it's spectacular.
And it grows pretty quick, and it's in the future. I mean, I won't be here, but 30 years hence, we'll have koa that's easy to source. So that could happen with other species too. You might have to wait 100 years, but it could happen. Fijian mahogany it's plentiful, but Fiji's a difficult place to work in and get wood out of, and it's hard, but not because there's not wood there. Yeah.
I love it. Hi, Bob. You wrote your book in 2011. Any thoughts of a second edition that would update the story since then?
Yeah. Boy, I don't want to do that. But I probably will.
Yahoo!
I would love that.
I would love
That's not
that.
an announcement, but that I finished the last words of that in a hotel in Amsterdam in November of 2010. When Kurt and I were over there, we were just opening up our warehouse, our not where more than a warehouse, our distribution, our Taylor distribution center. And I wrote the last little bit of that book then and sent it off. And it was fairly up to date in 2010. Now 13 years has gone by. And I mean, it includes Andy, it includes urban wood, it includes Creelicam, the ebony, the Koa, the new models, the Aesop, you guys, it includes so much growth of the company. And I think I need to probably write that. But a podcast is a lot easier. Thank you, Jay.
I can't wait. I cannot wait for you guys to hear this thing. It's Gabe. Where I feel so blessed and lucky and all of that because I've been so in it. And then I think I told you this on a previous episode, but then I said, "Hey, Gabe, I have an editing job for you." He said, "Yeah, what's that?" And I said, "We've been filming a podcast with Bob and Kurt."
Shocking amount of work comes my way during prime time. Hey, by the way.
Hey, by the way, Gabe, you have any questions?
What's next? What is exciting you right now? What are you looking forward to now? Because there's been so much going on lately, so much change in the world and in the industry, and just the last few years. So many big things have happened at Taylor, and every time I talk to you, I notice that you're as engaged as you've always been. Every single time I've ever talked to you, you're as excited about doing what you do as you've always been. What's exciting you now? Like, what are there? I know a lot of things are top secret, but are there any kind of current challenges that you're digging into that are kind of exciting you right now?
Some super exciting stuff. First of all, Powers Electric and Circa 74 excite me a lot. So we've already talked about that. We showed at NAMM at the Catch the first Bajo Quintos that we made, and we have a double 12, like a Doce Doble, coming out at the same time with that. I've wanted to, alongside Andy, as long as we've worked together, to start releasing instruments for the Latino market, and some of those traditional instruments, we think that we have a lot to offer as far as our expertise of making an instrument that's easy to play, sounds good, adjustable, that has those types of things. And so far the response to the few of those things that we've gotten out as we're finishing up the tooling for it has been really, really good. And that market is big. And so
right.
There's more acoustic types of guitars that we can make, even though we're talking about electric guitars and amplifiers. One thing I've said along the way is, like, anything that we invent, always, by the time we're done we turn it into a guitar. We're going to make a mandolin. Yeah, we started on that, but we just modified it until it became a guitar. And there's just a lot of different types of guitars that, frankly, Andy knows a lot about how to build, right? And then the other thing that excites me is, how do you continue manufacturing in the United States, make it more efficient, more cost effective? And you do that by being clever. You I have a friend who's a great purveyor of lean techniques. His name's Paul Akers, and he owns a company called Fast Cap, and they make tools for woodworkers. And he teaches lean techniques, like a sort of a Toyota way type thing. And he always says, solve your problems with your brain, not with money, right? And I love that. I love that kind of stuff, because there's so many things you can do to eliminate wasteful waste. Not waste, but ridiculous wasteful waste. It's kind of all around you all the time. And I like going through seasons of that and remaining competitive. Building the factory is never gets old to me. When I show people Taylor guitars, I give a tour, I almost always say, what I'm going to show you today is Taylor guitars today. I'm not going to show you yesterday's Taylor guitars, and I'm not going to show you tomorrow's Taylor guitars, because we haven't made tomorrow's Taylor guitars yet, and we left yesterday's behind. So what you're seeing is who we are today, right now, and you come back later, it's going to be different. We're going to grow, we're going to expand, and there's more design possibility with guitars to make them more reliable, make them more adjustable. And Andy has prototyped some brilliant ideas that I'm super excited about. And we want to bring those into the world of being able to manufacture them. Those I can't talk about. But this place is not boring to me yet.
It's not boring at all. That is sure. So, hey, Bob, we're running about 12 minutes after the hour. How about we do 2 more questions and then we'll wrap the show up? How are you cool with that?
I am.
All right, here we go. There was another question in here that was great, and it's about hiring people. Here we go. Having watched these primetime shows, I've been really impressed with the high quality of people that work at Taylor. How do you attract the caliber of people to work at Taylor Guitars or for Taylor Guitars?
Well,
because it's been this way for a long time. So I'm adding to that question. How do you do this?
I don't think it's magic. I think that the people that are attracted to here like the idea of making guitars, and the people who stay here like the idea of being involved in making guitars at Taylor. They love the company. It's every single individual's doing maybe more than the company's doing. You know, if we find somebody that wants to be here, then those people can usually weather all kinds of storms, because underneath they really want to be here. Things get better, things get worse. Things sometimes are just stressful and sometimes they're joyful, right? Sometimes you're winning, sometimes it's hard, but I don't think that, well, I do think that we try and keep it a good place to work here by respecting people. Sometimes we fail, or sometimes we're mismatched with people and they're not happy. You know, it's just an interesting thing. I can have 2 people let's say they're making bodies, and this guy's working on a body going, they're not paying me enough for this. And this guy's doing the exact same job and go, I can't believe they even pay me, you know? And so when those people find us and tend to stay, we end up with a lion's share of people just loving what they do, and it all works out.
It is a pretty magical place, and I got to meet people like Gabe. I got to meet people like Mike. Mike is an absolute joy to work with on a regular basis. He gets really frustrated when I talk about the Yankees, but whatever. It's fantastic. He's you and Kurt have really made this place special, Bob, and we can't appreciate it enough. It's just a phenomenal place. That is for sure.
Yeah. As an outside in, because for those of you watching who don't know this, I don't work at Taylor. Taylor's a client of mine, but I work with Taylor a lot. I was a dealer and an authorized repair tech for almost 20 years. Mike used to be one of my district sales managers. I can tell you from the outside in that you want to work with good people first. They're great guitars. They're great products. A lot of things are great products. Great people are harder to find. People who great dogs too. Hi, Roger. People who actually care, people who remember your name, people who pay attention, and who will take the time to stop and talk to you for an hour and a half at the NAMM show. That stuff goes a long way. I think on the way in, people who you've got a founder of a company coming on a live YouTube show or going on somebody else's. I saw the thing you did with Driftwood Guitars recently, which I thought
such a good article. Interview.
It was so good. You have somebody who will take the time to do that stuff. How many people do you know from not just guitar brands? How many people do you know from companies, from the top level, the C-suite level of companies that will do that? There aren't many. There aren't a lot. And there aren't, especially in big industry, but even in just musical instruments, there aren't many. And so I think, you have a lot of good people that are fun to be around. It's always fun to me, it's like seeing your friends, even though you're like, we're on a shoot somewhere, and I run into Tim Godwin and I get to see Jay, and we work really, really hard. And those shoots they're a ton of work, but it's also like, you get to see your friends. There's a lot of very good people. And I think that for me, that kind of matters a lot.
All right, check this out. Gabe, I appreciate you saying that, because that is the feeling, but from the inside out as well. We feel the same way, like being able to come here and enjoy it. Can I tell you guys a secret? Bob is right there, right behind me right now. He's right there. I could go through that door and I could give him a hug.
Like the Kool-Aid man.
I know. That's how close we are at Taylor is Bob and Kurt are here all the time still. And it's fantastic. There's a question in here about, has Taylor brought factory tours back? Not yet, not public factory tours. We've been doing a private tour from time to time. All right, we have one last question, and you know what time it is. We call this question Mike's question. We had to save this one till the very end because Mike worked all month on this question. Didn't you, Mike?
Sure.
All right, Mike, go for it.
All right. Well, Bob, one question that I like to ask when we have artists on or players, what have you, is, what piece of gear do you wish existed that doesn't exist that would make playing that much better? But I'm not going to ask that. I'm going to ask something similar. As a woodworker, what tool do you wish existed that doesn't exist that would make your woodworking, whether it be furniture, guitar building, what have you, what do you wish existed that would have made that experience that much easier and more enjoyable to do?
I would say at this point, intelligent finish application. And when I say intelligent, I mean some type of product that can lay down coats of finish very evenly, very thin, clean, smooth, and that can see where the guitar is and adjust itself on the fly. And we have there's a lot of automated stuff out there that's really intelligent, really smart. But the finish department, putting a finish on top of wood is probably the most challenging part of the whole entire process. So I would take that.
Awesome.
That was a good question, Mike. I liked that one.
I just feel so good that I had an answer for it.
Bob had an answer for it.
Well,
I know.
I almost didn't think you were gonna, because we build a lot of our own tools and fixtures and things like that. So usually it's, I need this. Nobody makes it. We will.
Okay, well, let me give you some examples of things I wish that we could get around to making or solve. Think of the side dots on a guitar, the most simple thing that you could take for granted on a guitar. So let's say we make 750 guitars a day, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that, side dots in the side of the fingerboard. And every one of those, the best we can do right now, literally, is to put up a jig that guides a drill and hold a drill and drill a hole accurately in the side of the fingerboard. Sometimes it's through plastic, sometimes it's through wood. When you drill it through the plastic, it curls up, plastic curls around the outside edge. Or if it does wood, if you push too hard or the drill bit's wrong, it can chip the wood and splinter the wood. And then if it's a dark edge of a fingerboard, black or rosewood binding or something like this, we take silver aluminum colored brazing rod that you would weld with, and we have to put a drop of glue in every one of those, and we push this in part way. Can't push it in too far because it needs to be what we call a fart fit, and it says you can push it in, but you kind of have to tap it, but you don't have to put it in like a nail, and you hope that you don't get these fibers going in with it that are going to mess it up of what's round. Then you clip it off, then you tap it in a little bit more, then you go all the way down that whole thing. And if it's a white bound guitar, we put a black piece of like polycarbonate rod in it and do the exact same thing. I've got to cut all of that off. And so that happens. Let's say there's, how many of them are there? I mean, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 12th. We stop at the 12th. We quit doing it on the 15th, right? Because you don't really need that one beyond it. And I don't want to put it in, right? Because that's 7. Well, during COVID, we were making 1,000 guitars a day. That was 7,000 times a day that what I just described had to happen, right? And if I had a machine that would automatically do that, blind, that'd be great. But every single day when we think of what do we need to do, we're like, okay, it's not going to be that. But there are so many operations on the guitars that we do that just take this kind of a thing happening. And when you add it up, it's just really, really a lot. And you didn't get any closer to the guitar being done when you're done with that. It's just like, well, it didn't have side dots, now it does. Glad we got that over with, right? And it's kind of like licking envelopes in the old days. Oh boy, I mean, we got a mailing of 5,000. I've got to lick them all. Boy, I wish I had a licking machine, And so we have our versions of those. So those are 2 answers. One of them is pie in the sky, but the other one I was able to describe to just say the factory is filled with all kinds of operations that are equal to the one of side dots. And no one thinks of a side dot.
That makes me think of a piece of content that we made during COVID, which Bob recorded a voiceover on an iPhone for, where Bob says only a guitar maker knows what a guitar maker does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The things we don't think about.
And it's part of that discussion with Ed and Chris today, Bob, was detail. So back to the question about hiring, the people that succeed at Taylor Guitars really focus on the details, and we learn from that. I've been in this situation where we were in the mill in Cameroon, and Bob was like 150 feet, maybe 100 feet, I don't know, 75, who knows? It's a blur, away from a process that was happening on a table saw. And I don't know if it was the way the saw blade sounded. I don't know if it was the smell. I don't know if it was the process in which the person was milling the wood. I don't know what it was, but Bob noticed it and stopped the conversation and went over and said, and he said it was wrong. He was doing it wrong. And it's the details. So back to that. This is why we exist here at Taylor, is Bob and Kurt have instilled this, pay attention to the details, because the details matter. The littlest finite detail. And I think every single one of us, I mean, it's one of the reasons we bring you on this podcast to hang out with us, Gabe. It's pretty great. It's pretty great. Anyway, we're going to end it there. I know we didn't get all of the questions answered, but we sure got a lot of them answered. Bob, it's been fantastic having you back on the show. We do have a 100th episode, so we might do something special.
Sure.
American
I
Dreamers.
love hanging with you guys.
It's such a pleasure having you on all the time.
Always.
And I'm going to go back to this comment that Daria, our great friend Daria, put. Bob, thank you so much for building
Daria.
your dream into a reality, because it's made so many of our dreams possible to you. And that is the absolute truth. That is the truth. So appreciate
I love you, Daria.
We love Daria.
Daria rules. She's the best.
She's like the sister I never had. I love it. Anyway, Mike, as always, Dreamers. It's fantastic hanging out with you, Mike. Gabe, it's always great to see you.
Always.
This is the best way. It's like we don't have to FaceTime. We can just get on Primetime and talk. And Bob, we really appreciate it. We are so excited to be in this 50th year with you and Kurt, and we're celebrating it, and it's going to be so much fun. We have so much of this content coming. We will see you probably in 2 weeks for another episode of Primetime. And yeah, that's it. Any parting words, Bob?
No. Thank you, everybody. Thank you guys for having me on. All the people that are out there that take their Tuesday night and look at this, I really, really appreciate it. We couldn't make guitars if people didn't want to own one and put their trust in us. We're just we're sort of fighting our way through the day like almost everybody else, but we really enjoy it and trying to do a good job, you know.
We're trying. It's great. Yeah, we could say that. Bob Taylor is the GOAT. There we go. Boom. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will see you in a couple of weeks. Pay attention to our emails. We got some good content coming to you this year. Love it. Take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Nerds.
Bye, nerds.
Thank you.